They will never show you the truth. Not on the evening news, not in the polished statements of politicians, and not in the endless stream of propaganda poured into your living room. Because if you saw it, if you understood what is really being prepared behind closed doors, you would demand answers they cannot give. For decades, Washington has fed the American people a story of defense, of spreading freedom, of protecting democracy. But behind that story is something far more dangerous, a plan designed not to protect you, but to control you. A plan that risks American lives, American security, and the very survival of our nation just to serve the ambitions of a small ruling elite. This hidden war plan is not about peace. It is not about stability. It is about power, raw, unrestrained power, and the ruthless determination to impose it on the rest of the world no matter the cost. And make no mistake, the cost will be yours. The cost will be borne by your sons and daughters, by your jobs, by your future, while those who drew up this plan hide safely in the shadows. Tonight, I will reveal what they don't want you to see. I will cut through the lies, strip away the illusions, and show you the truth that has been buried for far too long. Because only when you see clearly, only when you know what is coming, can you begin to resist it. They have mastered the art of illusion. They hand you carefully chosen words, bright images of waving flags, speeches dripping with promises of freedom and democracy. They sell the dream of noble missions abroad, wrapping it in patriotism so you never question what lies underneath. Yet beneath the surface, beyond the headlines and polished press conferences, there exists a reality so cold, so calculated, it can no longer be hidden by empty slogans. The story they present is not truth, it is theater, crafted to keep you calm, to keep you obedient, while decisions are made in silence that will shape your future without your consent. This illusion is powerful because it does not rely on facts, it relies on feelings. They know the human heart responds to fear and pride. They invoke the fear of enemies, the shadow of foreign threats waiting at your doorstep. Then they stir pride, telling you that only your nation stands as a beacon of light against the darkness. In this cycle of fear and pride, people surrender their judgment, they stop asking questions, they accept policies that strip them of security while convincing them they are being protected. And that is the greatest trick ever performed, convincing you that chains are freedom, convincing you that endless wars are the price of peace. But illusions cannot last forever. If you look closely, if you strip away the emotional bait, you will see the contradictions. You will see a government that speaks of protecting lives while sacrificing thousands in foreign deserts and frozen fields. You will see leaders who speak of defending freedom while eroding it at home through surveillance, censorship, and economic control. You will see institutions that promise stability but sow chaos across the world, leaving nations in ruins while claiming moral victory. This is not an accident, it is design. A design meant to keep you blind to the truth that the system feeds itself on war, thrives on instability, and survives only by keeping the population distracted with illusions of righteousness. The illusion extends beyond politics. It reaches into the very fabric of your daily life. The media becomes its megaphone, repeating the same phrases until they burn into your mind. Defending democracy, protecting our allies, fighting terror. These words are not meant to inform you, they are meant to program you. They are psychological weapons, crafted to soften resistance, to make you believe participation in these hidden plans is not only necessary but honorable. And while the screen flashes with talking heads and endless debates, the real decisions, the dangerous, irreversible ones, are made in rooms where no cameras are allowed, by people who will never face the consequences of their choices. This illusion also thrives on distraction. They feed you scandal, spectacles, and political theater, all designed to keep your eyes turned away from the machinery grinding forward in the background. While you argue over trivial battles at home, vast strategies are being executed abroad. While you scroll through entertainment noise, resources are quietly drained, troops are quietly moved, alliances are quietly cemented. By the time you realize what has happened, the plan is already too far along, and you are told it is too late to resist. Every empire in history has used illusion to justify its hunger. Rome promised order while it enslaved. Britain promised civilization while it plundered. Now modern powers promise democracy while they expand their reach into every corner of the globe. The pattern is as old as history itself. Yet people continue to fall for the same spell because the illusion is always tailored to their time, to their values, to their fears. The most dangerous illusion is not the lie you recognize. It is the lie that feels like truth, the narrative that seems too patriotic, too noble, too necessary to question. That is the web in which people are caught, and that is why the illusion endures. If you strip away the veil, what you find is not protection, but exploitation. The illusion tells you wars are fought for safety, but the reality is wars are fought for profit, for influence, for power. The illusion tells you sacrifices are temporary, but the reality is generations inherit the debt, the trauma, the consequences. The illusion tells you enemies are at the gates, but the reality is those who profit from conflict live within your own borders, smiling while you pay the cost. And the most tragic part is that millions still believe the illusion, still cheer for it, still defend it against those who try to break it. The first step to freedom is vision. The first act of resistance is to see through the mask they wear. The illusion is strong, yes, but not unbreakable. It relies on silence, on your unwillingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Once you begin to see, once you refuse to accept words at face value, once you demand to know what lies behind the curtain, the illusion begins to crack. And when enough people see, the entire edifice begins to tremble because their power depends entirely on your belief in the story they tell. The illusion is the shield protecting the hidden plan. It is the stage set on which the drama plays out while the true script is kept out of sight. They do not want you to question it. They do not want you to doubt it, because the moment you do, the mask slips and the truth becomes unavoidable. That truth is darker than they will ever admit, but it is also the key to reclaiming what has been stolen: your voice, your choice, your future. They tell you wars erupt because of accidents, misunderstandings, sudden sparks that cannot be controlled. But the truth is far different. Wars are not random, they are engineered. They are fed and fueled like a fire that never dies. Behind every battlefield, behind every rising column of smoke, there is an engine that keeps running, demanding more fuel, more lives, more sacrifice. That engine is not powered by justice or security. It is powered by profit and ambition, by a system that thrives only when conflict never ends. Look closely at history and the pattern reveals itself. Each war is declared as the one that will end all wars. Each campaign sold as the last push for peace. Yet peace never comes. Instead, new conflicts arise, each more costly than the last, each wrapped in the same noble words that mask the same ruthless design. The promises change, the enemies change, the maps change, but the machinery behind it never does. It is the same machine that drained nations in the past, the same machine that drains them now, and the same machine that will keep draining until someone tears it apart. The reason is simple: too many people gain from endless wars. Entire industries rise and fall on the contracts signed in secret, the weapons shipped by the millions, the resources seized and sold under the flag of liberation. Corporations, bankers, and power brokers count their profits while ordinary families bury their dead. Leaders step onto podiums with solemn faces, speaking of sacrifice, while they sign deals that fatten their allies and secure their legacies. It is not about protecting nations. It is about feeding the insatiable hunger of an elite that has never cared for the cost paid in blood. And the cost is always paid by those who never made the decision. Young men and women sent across oceans told they fight for freedom when in truth they fight for contracts, pipelines, and political games. Families left behind with empty chairs at their tables told their loss was noble while the architects of war live untouched in comfort. Taxpayers drained of wealth to fund battles that solved nothing, leaving schools crumbling, hospitals understaffed, cities collapsing, all while billions vanish into the black hole of military spending. This is the engine of endless wars. It devours everything in its path, demanding sacrifices that never end, while those who control it remain untouchable. The machine does not stop when the fighting pauses. Even in so-called peace, the gears keep turning. New threats are invented, new enemies declared, new narratives written to justify the next campaign. A nation cannot be allowed to rest because rest brings reflection and reflection brings questions. So the people must be kept afraid, always watching for the next enemy, always told the danger is growing. In that fear, they will accept anything: higher taxes, tighter control, restrictions on their freedom, so long as it is promised in the name of safety. Fear is the fuel, and the machine will never run short of it. If you trace the path of this engine, you find it leads not to battlefields but to boardrooms and private chambers where strategies are drafted in silence. Deals are struck not with votes of the people but with handshakes behind closed doors. Wars are planned not for necessity but for opportunity. Each conflict is an investment, each intervention a gamble on power and resources. And the people are never told the real stakes, never shown the real motives, because if they saw the truth, they would resist. Instead, the truth is buried beneath layers of propaganda, while the machine continues to turn. The greatest trick is convincing the public that war is inevitable, that humanity is doomed to repeat it, that it is written into our nature. But this is another lie, another weapon of control. War persists not because it must, but because those in power cannot let it end. Peace would strip them of influence, starve their industries, and expose their fraud. That is why every armistice feels temporary, why every victory feels hollow. Because the plan is not to win, the plan is to continue. A finished war is worthless to them. An endless war is priceless. And so the machine adapts. When one theater cools, another ignites. When one enemy falls, another rises. When the public grows weary, a new crisis is manufactured. It is a cycle without end, designed to keep the population in a permanent state of tension, unable to rest, unable to see the larger picture. And in that exhaustion, in that fog of endless conflict, the rulers tighten their grip. But no machine can run forever without breaking. The more it demands, the more it consumes, the weaker the foundations beneath it become. Every empire that relied on endless wars eventually collapsed under the weight of its own lies. Every system built on blood eventually drowned in it. Yet while it still runs, the suffering will continue, because those who benefit from it will never stop willingly. They will never confess, never change course, never step aside. They will keep pushing, keep feeding, keep burning, until someone sees clearly enough to break the cycle. This is the engine of endless wars, the hidden heartbeat of power that pulses beneath every headline, every speech, every military parade. It is not about peace, it is not about safety, it is not about freedom. It is about control, profit, and dominance. And until people understand this truth, until they see the machine for what it is, the cycle will not end. In every age, the true moves of power are made in silence. While the world's eyes are fixed on speeches, on parades, on flashing headlines, something far greater is unfolding behind the curtain. Armies do not move by accident. Bases do not appear overnight. Fleets do not sail without purpose. There is a silent expansion underway, a spreading of influence so vast and methodical that most never notice until it is too late. It does not announce itself with declarations. It advances through hidden agreements, covert positioning, quiet encirclement, one step at a time until entire regions are locked in place like pieces on a chessboard. This expansion is not about defense, it is about reach. Each new outpost, each military pact, each economic lever is a chain thrown over distant lands, binding them tighter to a strategy that has nothing to do with peace. The illusion is always the same: protecting allies, stabilizing regions, deterring enemies. But beneath polished language lies the raw truth. The goal is dominance, the tightening of a grip over resources, over routes, over populations who were never asked for consent. This silent spread does not carry banners of conquest, but its effect is no different than empires of old. Borders shift, sovereignty shrinks, and entire nations wake up to find their future already written. Look to the maps and you will see it, dots of bases scattered like seeds across continents. A line of influence stretching across oceans, cutting off rivals before they can even breathe. Networks of intelligence, logistics, and weapons stockpiles placed with precision, ensuring no corner of the globe escapes surveillance. Each move appears small, insignificant on its own, but together they form a cage and architecture of control designed to suffocate opposition before it even rises. This is not spontaneous policy, it is deliberate strategy written long before the public ever hears of it. What makes this expansion so dangerous is its invisibility. Wars are obvious, battles erupt with sound and fire. But this is different. It advances in the quiet hours, buried in treaties few read, hidden in budgets few question, disguised as routine training exercises or humanitarian missions. It is war without declaration, conquest without invasion, a steady march that reorders the world without ever sounding the alarms. And because it moves quietly, the people sleep through it, unaware that the ground beneath them is shifting. The justification is always necessity. A new base here to respond faster to crisis. A new fleet there to guarantee freedom of navigation. A new alliance to strengthen stability. These words are carefully chosen, meant to soothe doubt and silence resistance. Yet the result is always the same. Another piece of the puzzle falls into place. Another stretch of land comes under the shadow of distant power. By the time anyone questions the pattern, the net has already tightened, and entire regions find themselves surrounded, their choices reduced, their independence only a memory. This expansion is not limited to soldiers and ships. It reaches into the veins of economies, the flow of trade, the lifelines of technology and energy. Nations find themselves bound by financial strings, forced to comply or risk collapse. Infrastructure projects, loans, and trade deals appear generous, but hidden within them are clauses that erode sovereignty, tying governments to obligations they can never escape. Just as the military encirclement closes in on borders, the economic encirclement binds leaders in chains of debt and dependency. Both work together, reinforcing each other, leaving no space for escape. History shows that silent expansion is more effective than open conquest. Armies marching across borders provoke resistance, but expansion masked as protection disarms criticism. It convinces populations they are being shielded even as their freedom is quietly surrendered. By the time the truth becomes clear, the cage is complete, and breaking it would demand sacrifices most are too afraid to make. That is why it continues so effectively, because the silence lulls people into compliance, and fear of alternatives keeps them from challenging it. Every empire has built its power on expansion, but what makes this age unique is the scale and subtlety. Technology extends the reach further than armies of the past could dream. Satellites track every movement, drones patrol skies without warning, cyber systems infiltrate unseen. This is expansion in dimensions invisible to the naked eye, yet just as suffocating as walls of concrete and steel. The battlefield is no longer just land and sea, it is information supply chains, financial systems, and in this battlefield, dominance is achieved not through open war but through total saturation until no rival can breathe without permission. The silence is the weapon, because silence breeds ignorance and ignorance breeds compliance. The fewer people know, the easier it becomes to tighten the grip, but silence also creates fragility. A system built on secrecy and hidden maneuvers is one that fears exposure. If the people saw the maps, if they traced the lines, if they connected the dots, the illusion of defense would collapse and the expansion would be revealed for what it is, a project of control designed to lock the future and into the hands of a few. The silent expansion is already here. It surrounds you in ways you cannot always see, but you feel its weight in higher costs, in lost freedoms, in the constant drumbeat of crisis after crisis. It is a cage disguised as protection, a noose disguised as security. And unless it is recognized for what it truly is, it will keep tightening until the silence breaks, not with truth, but with catastrophe. They will never admit the cost. They will tell you of victories, of progress, of necessary sacrifices, but they will never show you the faces behind the numbers. They will never let you hear the silence of a home where laughter once lived, or the emptiness of a chair that will never again be filled. The hidden war plans are not drawn in ink, they are written in the blood of ordinary people, stamped into the lives of families who never asked to carry this burden. Every decision made in polished offices carries a price that is paid somewhere else. A soldier pulled from his mother's embrace, told he is serving freedom while walking into chaos he does not understand. A family waiting by the phone, praying it never rings, yet knowing it could at any moment. The cost is measured in tears shed quietly in dark rooms, in dreams abandoned, in futures destroyed before they had a chance to begin. These lives are not statistics, they are the real currency of war, and they are spent recklessly by those who will never feel the loss. The economic weight is just as crushing. While billions vanish into distant battlefields, communities at home collapse, bridges crumble, hospitals beg for resources, schools operate on scraps, yet there is always money for bombs, always funding for foreign campaigns. The price is not only in lives lost abroad, but in lives diminished at home, where citizens are told to tighten their belts, to expect less, to endure more, all while their wealth is siphoned into a machine that never stops demanding. Generations inherit debts they did not choose, bound by chains of obligation to wars they never fought. But the deepest cost is not material, it is spiritual. Endless war corrodes the soul of a nation. It teaches people to accept death as normal, to see violence as inevitable, to grow numb to the suffering of others. Children grow up believing that conflict is the natural state of the world, that peace is nothing more than a brief pause between bombings. This erosion of spirit leaves scars that cannot be measured, scars that linger long after the guns fall silent. A society that accepts this erosion is a society slowly losing itself, trading compassion for apathy, wisdom for ignorance, humanity for fear. They will not speak of the broken veterans wandering streets, unable to sleep, unable to forget what they were forced to witness. They will not speak of families living in ruins across the globe, whose only mistake was being born in the wrong place at the wrong time. They will not speak of children growing up without parents, of parents burying their sons and daughters before their time. They will not speak of any of it, because if the people saw the true cost in human terms, they would never consent to it again. Instead, the cost is hidden beneath layers of propaganda. Heroes are honored in ceremonies, flags are folded, anthems are sung, but none of it erases the truth. These rituals are meant to pacify, to cover the unbearable with symbols that make it seem noble. But there is nothing noble about a life cut short for the sake of strategies that serve no one but those who profit from chaos. The ceremonies end, the cameras leave, and the grieving are left alone with a loss that no speech can repair. The cost also spreads far beyond borders. Nations broken by intervention become breeding grounds for hatred, instability, and despair. Millions are displaced, forced to flee with nothing but the clothes on their backs, wandering into uncertain futures. The cost is etched into the faces of refugees, into the empty marketplaces of cities reduced to rubble, into the hollow eyes of survivors who have seen everything taken from them. These consequences do not vanish with the signing of treaties. They linger for decades, poisoning the very idea of peace for generations yet unborn. What is most disturbing is that the cost is known in advance. The architects of these plans calculate casualties, predict destruction, and weigh the losses before they ever act. They know how many will die, how many will suffer, how many will be left broken. Yet they proceed because to them the cost is abstract, reduced to numbers on a chart balanced against profits and influence. They see no faces, hear no cries, feel no pain. For them, the cost is acceptable because they will never pay it. But for those who bear it, there is no escape. The mother who buries her child will carry that pain forever. The soldier who returns broken in body or spirit will live with that wound until his last breath. The nation that loses its youth, its wealth, its spirit will not recover in a single generation. The true cost is permanent, and it falls not on the powerful but on the powerless, not on the decision makers but on the forgotten masses who never had a voice in the first place. And this is why the cost must remain hidden. If it were shown clearly, if people could see the full weight of what is being stolen from them, the machine would stop. No nation would willingly march into endless conflict if it truly understood the devastation it brings. So the truth is buried, the consequences disguised, and the suffering silenced. But the silence cannot last forever. The cost is too great, too heavy, too widespread to remain hidden forever. There always comes a point when illusion, deception, and manipulation collide with reality. That point is choice. Not the kind of choice handed down in carefully scripted ballots or in speeches filled with empty words, but the raw, undeniable choice between submission and resistance. The hidden plans moving silently through corridors of power are not abstract. They are aimed directly at the people who will live with their consequences. Every war strategy, every expansion, every sacrifice carries humanity to a crossroads where silence means acceptance and awareness demands action. That is the final choice they never want you to see. For too long, people have been conditioned to believe they are powerless, that decisions are made far above their reach, that questioning authority is futile. This lie has allowed the machine to move forward unchallenged, devouring lives and wealth without interruption. But the truth is that the foundation of their power rests entirely on compliance. Without consent, without obedience, without the willingness of ordinary citizens to play their part, the entire structure crumbles. This is why fear is weaponized, why illusions are crafted, why the cost is hidden. Because the moment people see clearly, the power shifts. The final choice is not simply political, it is existential. It is about whether societies will continue down a path paved with endless conflict, drained resources, and broken generations, or whether they will reclaim the will to resist. It is about whether individuals will allow fear to dictate their future, or whether they will confront the architects of chaos with the unshakable demand for truth. And make no mistake, this choice will not be offered gently. It must be seized, taken back from those who have stolen it. The danger lies in hesitation. Every day spent ignoring the hidden plan is another day it tightens its grip. Every moment of distraction, every acceptance of propaganda, every shrug of indifference gives it more strength. Waiting for a better time, a safer moment, is the very trap they count on. They know people cling to comfort, avoid confrontation, hope someone else will act first. But history is merciless to the passive. Those who wait are swallowed, their choices made for them, their futures written in ink they never touched. The final choice is not tomorrow's decision. It is here now, pressing against every heart that still beats for freedom. And yet there is power in awakening. When even a fraction of the people refuse to accept the illusion, cracks begin to form. When voices rise against the silence, the machinery that thrives in darkness begins to stall. When truth spreads faster than their lies, the narrative collapses under its own contradictions. The strength of the people has always been underestimated because the system depends on it. But history proves that when societies awaken, empires tremble, and when people demand truth, no amount of deception can contain it. The final choice is also deeply personal. It is the decision every individual must face when confronted with the reality of endless wars and hidden agendas. Do you remain blind, comfortable in illusions that cost others their lives, or do you step into the light accepting the burden of truth? Do you allow fear to silence your voice, or do you become the voice that breaks the silence? The machine does not need everyone to resist. It only needs most to remain passive. That is why the personal choice of each viewer, each listener, each citizen is more powerful than they realize. This is the moment where the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future meet. Generations before paid in blood and sacrifice, often without knowing why. Generations ahead will inherit the world we leave behind. The question is whether they inherit chains or freedom, despair or hope, silence or truth. That question cannot be answered by leaders. It cannot be settled by elites. It can only be answered by the collective will of the people who refuse to be deceived any longer. The architects of hidden war plans count on fatigue, on apathy, on the belief that nothing can change. But the truth is their greatest fear is not foreign rivals, not distant enemies. It is awakening. It is the moment when enough people refuse to participate in their games, when enough people reject the illusions, when enough people see the cost and say no more. That moment has toppled empires before, and it can happen again. The final choice is clear. Continue walking the path carved by others, a path drenched in lies and suffering, or carve a new path, one that exposes the truth and rejects the agenda of endless control. It is a choice between living as subjects of a hidden design or living as free beings who refuse to be manipulated. It is the choice between surrender and defiance, between sleep and awakening, between silence and truth. And though the choice is heavy, though it demands courage, it is the only path that leads to survival. To see the hidden plan is to face the responsibility of resisting it. To resist it is to reclaim not only a nation, but the very essence of what it means to live free.